Woof. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Two Dogs Digs on our Tuesday Night Live Hall Pass. Tonight, we're talking about something that you've heard us say a little bit before about, but are you selling on Whatnot? If not, why not? It's a great place for people to take a look at selling. And in fact, it's something that we are now, I think it's like almost our second best platform for sales. And we've only been on it for 18 months. So I know I talk a little bit about it here and there, but I really haven't done a good deep dive. And I think when we're doing a deep dive, we need to know about a couple of different things. How it sells for how I fulfill things, since I'm a cross-border shipper from Canada, but also how a US person does things and how a Canadian does things, because you can sell from any of those platforms. In fact, there's Whatnot's also available now in UK and France, and I think even Germany. So it's expanding around the world. So we actually sold something last night to somebody in Germany on our show that we did. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to take you through the fees on Whatnot. We're going to take you through some top tips that we have on how to do the shows. And more importantly, I think we're even going to show you how to do a listing or two. But more importantly than anything, we're going to hear from two sellers who actually sell on Whatnot. Now, one of them you may be familiar with because she is a member of our Kennel Club and is in here. And that is Sharibee. Hey, Shari. So Shari is a U.S. seller who actually used our us as a referral when we first started talking about this, almost about, I guess, over a year ago now, almost, Shari.
Just about a year ago, yeah.
And started doing it, and now a year later, Shari is still doing shows. So it's worked out for Shari to try and do. But we also thought, Shari's selling from the U.S., so she's used to how USPS does things and things like that. But what about somebody from Canada? Because we really need to know how someone from Canada who doesn't have access to a cross-border shipper does it. So we thought, we looked around, we tried to ask from some people for some help, and we found someone who we think could be an amazing person that we just introduced ourselves recently to, and that is Nuria Sanchez. Nuria is with Vintiquity out in BC. So Nuria is a Canadian seller on Whatnot using Canada Post. And you've been on there now for about, 2 years as well?
A little over a year, so.
A little over a year.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about all three of us is we all have, I think, similar experiences on how we do stuff. We sell different types of things. You can get a kind of hint at Nuria has stuff behind her. That is not a backdrop. That's an actual store. So Nuria has a vintage store. So she has that as an actual retail base, but she's also selling on, I think eBay is one of your platforms, Nuria?
eBay, Poshmark, and Whatnot.
Sharibee, you sell on eBay
and Poshmark.
Poshmark.
And I do have a store, I guess, on Etsy, but I haven't touched it in over a year. So it may not be there anymore for all I know.
No, it's probably still there. CROSSLIST Magic. Remember, CROSSLIST Magic. Take that for your. I'm going to talk about that again.
I'm still thinking about that one.
So we're going to talk a lot more about how Whatnot works, how the fees are set up, because that's a thing that tricks a lot of people. But I do want to say hello to everybody who's joined us here. A big special extra hello to everyone who's in our Kennel Club, who's joined us on the side. You see your names. You got a little icon beside you. Thank you for supporting us here at Two Dogs Digs and helping you on your reselling journey, and hopefully giving you something that is well worth the $3 a month to say, hey, I made $3 from that comment. I learned something today, and I saved myself $3. That's what we're here for. So, Adrian was the first one in tonight. Hey, Adrian, Janet, Lisa, hello, Diana, Marianne, Joel, Louette, Michael's in here. So we got US and Canadian people. Donna, Heather, who has tried and just did like a little 10-minute trial of a show with Bob and her husband, and then they decided we don't know what we're doing. So we got to learn. So that's hopefully what they're going to do. Holly, Bluegrass. A name I don't recognize, Pixie69. Thanks for popping in. Glad to see some new people in here too. Kevin, Elisa, Susan, hey, Sandy. I may see some people's names twice. Paul, Mr. Greg, who is really dying to know about books. Nuria, I told you Greg is the guy who is a book guy who's like, Joan. My better half is just sitting downstairs. He's not coming on camera tonight, so that it's just one less person on camera, basically. So Donna actually started watching a few Whatnot shows to see how they present their items, and that is a perfect thing to start off sort of with, is making sure you actually look at how things happen on Whatnot. Elisa, hey, you need help with logistics, how to label stuff, and as you send it, as you sell it, how many devices do you need? Hey, Kendra. So yes, Bob stopped, and there was cursing involved. That is very much cursing. Hey, Charmaine. Hey, Andrew. Andrew, I feel like I'm way too boring for a live show format. I'll probably give it a try to liquidate some of your massive CD and DVD backlog. Well, I think that's probably, to me, one of the biggest things that people are afraid of, is that they think that I don't want to be on camera. I don't have the personality. I can't talk. It's not a place for me. And I'm going to say, obviously, no one is as bizarre as I am. So the fact that I never shut up and everything is fine. The fact that Rick and I bicker and people think that's fun, it's fun. So people watch that. But I can talk for hours. I used to teach presentations. This is me babbling on. But that doesn't, and I don't mind appearing on camera. Obviously, the big bald head is everywhere, and everyone says I have a voice for radio and the face to match. But still, I love doing this sort of stuff, and it's a big connection for me. Again, the thing about a lot of people think about with thrifting and reselling is it's a solo thing. You're doing it on your own. Your spouse may not like it. Your parents may think you're weird. But this is like our YouTube channel, our Facebook group, and even Whatnot are ways that we can sort of connect with people. So I'm going to do a quick show first to just show you. This is actually the link to our shop. So when we go on to Whatnot, everybody has a little shop that's been set up. This is us at Two Dogs Digs. And you can see we have 399 reviews, 1.8 thousand followers, so 1,800 followers. We're not following a lot of people. These are shows that we've got coming up. Here is Nuria. She's got 369 reviews, 5 stars, 2,000 people following her. She doesn't follow us. She's like, to me, 10% she follows 10% of the people, but she's got 2,000 people. And look, she's got a stream coming up tonight. So right after this show, you can pop right onto Whatnot, go and look at Vintiquity, and you can see actually how she does her shows. And Shari actually has 1.6 thousand followers, and she's been on a year. So like, you're seeing people who have 2,000 plus followers who've been on this a year or so. So, and there's 3 of Shari's shows that are all coming up. They all have little icons on them. So I'm going to pop out of that and just sort of go back into when you started on Whatnot. Were you afraid to go on camera? Let's start first with you, Nuria. What about you? When were you like, oh, I don't want to be on camera? Like, do you go on camera? Do you like explain how you handle the shows?
It didn't take me long to get on camera. Let's just put it that way. I actually have an acting background, so it's a little bit easier, and that made it easy. But I would say my first 3 shows, I didn't show my face. I just wasn't ready for that, unfortunately. But now I'm always on camera unless I'm doing my jewelry shows, and then I'm just displaying, just because it works a little bit better for jewelry. But for something like showing items from the store or my most recent finds, that I have to do on camera. And I love reading the chat, and I love interacting with people while I'm showing the items and auctioning them off.
Oh, so you flip. You might have thought I'm never going to show myself on camera, but Shari, I know you're the opposite. You're not on camera. It's your lovely hands that are on camera. You focus on jewelry though, as Nuria actually said. So that's probably, as it's something that's smaller, it's a good idea to do that, but you just like the voice and showing everything. You're not necessarily I want to be on camera person.
I'm not an I want to be on camera person. However, like Nuria said, there are some things that you need to do, and if I want to expand this business, I got to get in front of the camera. So I am thinking that I do jewelry now and some cosmetics, small things like wallets, purses, but small items that I can hold my hands in front of the camera and show them. When we did my husband's show this past week, it was all small knickknacks, things like that. I was able to do it without being on camera. I have the Kentucky Derby show coming up next week, next Tuesday. And that's a raid train that I do. And we are doing a fun thing and making our fascinators. We're going to make our hat. So I got to get on camera.
That's awesome.
I don't think it'll look quite right if I just put it on the table in front of me.
No, probably not as easy. No, and I'm trying to think. I have a video. Maybe Rick, if you can take a look for it, there should be a video that I did that is how we do our setup for this. And right now, I'm just going to show people how what it looks like for those who may or may not be completely familiar with it. So let me see. How am I going to do this? I have to get to my phone. I'm going to show you this. A lot of the stuff we're going to show you today, I'm going to show you actually on a desktop, because you can work from a desktop or a phone. But because this is for video and people are going to review this afterwards, I'll be doing a lot of stuff on the desktop, but I'm just going to show you how it works on the phone right now and see if I can get this working properly for me. Because of course, because I stopped doing it, it's going to time itself out now. This is let's see how I do it this way. This is literally my phone right now. And this is Whynot. So Whynot is this amazing live selling platform. So it's kind of combining eBay auctions and live YouTube, Facebook sort of thing. It's kind of like Poshmark Live. Poshmark Live does live auctions. Depop, I think, is doing them as well. But this just seems to be the platform that really took off with it, as opposed to how some of those platforms have worked. And as you can see, I can go through here. I have hosts that I follow and the types of shows that they end up doing. I can just scroll up and down on here. It has tons of different categories. I'm going to show you those on a big screen in a moment. But right now, for example, this is somebody everybody know. A lot of people in our chat know Popeye's Postcards. Popeye does a show every Tuesday. He actually does it at 8 o'clock. Nuria's show is normally on Tuesdays. One of her shows is normally Tuesdays at 8 o'clock as well. But she stays on past an hour, so you still have to watch me, and then you can go into Nuria right after that on normal Tuesdays. But if we click on that, we go right into Popeyes. There we are. We're actually watching a show.
You know what? Hey, Two Dogs Diggs, how you doing?
I don't know if you could hear him or not on there, but it actually went straight into a show. He saw me. He said, "Hey, Two Dogs Diggs," and he's actually auctioning postcards on a regular basis on there. So it's very easy to look at. When I look at that, I have a profile. And again, I'm just showing you these on my Android. You can see this on your iOS on your Apple phone. This is my profile in there. I have my shop. I have shows. And this is a show I've got coming up. I can check my shows. I can add things to my shows in here. I have a shop that has shows, things that are coming up in my next show, right up there for people to take a look at if they want to take a look at them. So this is sort of how easy it is to set it up. It's really not as complicated as I think a lot of people end up thinking it would be. Now I just have to shrink this back down and go to our regular screen for, where is it? Here. And I'm going to take you through some of the more basic kind of things. So this is all the category. Whynot has a ton of categories out there. Its first real big thing was trading cards, Pokemon, Funkos, and comic books. Those are sort of and sports cards. Those were the big sort of, I think, four that they really started out with. Clothing and accessories has grown in leaps and bounds. But also in the past, I think in the past year, vintage decor, estate sales, and toys and hobbies and dolls, those have all grown gigantically in there. We see more and more shows going on them all the time. So again, you just go to whatnot.com and you can actually see all these different things. And you can go into any one of these. This is just to explore something. And let's just say right now, I want to know what's happening in antiques, vintage, and ephemera. If I can do this on my phone, but I'm showing you on here right now. And today is actually one of the reasons Nuria was like, it's today. It's like, it's National Cherish an Antique Day. So that's her show focus that's going to be happening in like 9:15. But because it's Cherish an Antique Day, There's a bunch of antique dealers on here. And if you can see on here, I'm not sure if you can. Let's see if I can blow it up a little more. Right now, there's 28 people watching Popeye's Postcards live. There's 39 watching Requiem Salvage, 118 watching Upcycled by Bree. Now, all of these people have got a little icon, some kind of little thumbnail that they put up for a show. Sometimes it's something solid. Sometimes, like look at this one, Upcycled by Bree, took a little video and added to it. So it's just another way to get someone who might scroll across it to stop and look and go, maybe I want to find out what's happening in this show. There's another one I see just down here too. Dead people stuff from the 1800s. And look at that. They've shown a little, but again, they caught somebody with that. Foothills Cottage got 8 people. National Cherish and Antique Day. So there's tons of categories out there for people to actually go into and see. And some people have 4 people, 3 people, 5 people in a show. Some people have 50, 100, 300 people in a show, especially in the Pokemon card kind of thing. So when you're thinking about it, you're doing something live. People are popping in and popping out. In, out, in. You never know really who is in your show. You just see a little chat that's down the side of it, which I didn't get a good screen cap of. But when you're doing shows, so Shari, I'll ask you first. How many people average in the shows that you're doing? Because you do jewelry shows a number of times a week sometimes.
When I do my own show that's not part of a raid train, I average about 6 or 7 people. When I'm in a train, it's the people being passed down to me from the shows previously, depending on how long they've stuck around, or they're planning to pop into the train. I can usually bounce up to between 15 and 30, 35.
Nuria, what are you like with yours?
I generally average about 15 to 20 people per show. And a few more start coming in when I start doing my unboxing, which is generally always an hour after I begin my show.
Yeah, actually, why don't you explain that one thing to people? Because I thought it was a really unique concept, if you don't mind explaining it.
No, not at all.
There's all sorts of different ways people sell on here. First of all, let me just pop here before I pop to you again. There's all sorts of ways people sell on here. People shop in thrift stores with their camera, and you can buy the stuff that they're scanning on the shelves. People buy box loads from Amazon and storage units, and they open the boxes right then and there. People do curated shows where they may have things like Pokemon and they're tearing open boxes and selling individual cards. People have mystery games. People have all sorts of different things. So one thing we always try and say, and Donna from Boogaloo Buys gave you the right sort of direction there, is take a look at categories that are like yours for a little while. Just pop into it a couple of times. When you're sitting on the toilet, go and open it up and go look at a couple of shows. No one can see you. So you can actually see what the shows look like and see how people sell their stuff and put their stuff together. But so I do pictures of stuff. I curate a lot of stuff. I try and do specific shows. So that Shari does jewelry. Nuria does a couple of different kinds of things. And one of them that she told me about was first you do scanning of your actual store.
Yeah. So I generally begin my show because I do have items preloaded on the show, and they're generally somewhere on my shelves. And then I'll grab a few items for 1 hour, and then I'll start auctioning them off. Whether or not people are bidding or not, it doesn't matter. I just keep on going and keep on going because that's key to Whatnot. You have to keep on auctioning items off. You can't just stop and ask people, what do you want to see? People can look at your store and you can say, hey, is there anything in my auction that you guys want me to show you, and then auction it off. But then at the hour mark, and this is where everybody gets extremely excited, is I go thrifting for a full week. And I don't take anything out of the bags or out of the boxes of what I bring home during that week until I do my unboxing on Whatnot that night. And so my Whatnot watchers, followers, they get first dibs on anything that I have from that week.
Now, I'm just going to show you, this is Nuria's store right now for her show that's coming up tonight. And you can see, I got to make it big enough that people can see it, but not too big that it gets too giant for me to go off screen on it. So here, she mentioned on the side here, she's actually loaded in things. There's if you wanted to, you can go on her show and you can say, oh, I'd like to, can you put that blue crackle ceramic bird up? And she can put that up for sale right away. she also has things like Shari also does a lot as well. Number of products that she's got under certain weights or things along those lines. So specific weights and specific prices that she can add to. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we build those things. So like somebody just asked, like Heather said, how do you set up the auctions? How do you do that? How do you get things, do these things around there? So Shari, I think you're the same way, as I said, with that Nuria is talking about, which is you set up, yours is set up with like weights.
Yeah, I'll put in, because the average piece of jewelry is 0 to 3 ounces. I'll do the 1 to 3 ounces, and I'll do 100, 150 items, and then I'll have them all lit. There's a toggle to list them all individually, and I'll hit that toggle, save it, and it'll literally put 1 through 150 of 1 to 3 ounce items.
Okay.
And then I don't add pictures to it, and just let it go that way, and then I just keep running.
So again, this is one of the things we're going to try and answer some of the questions that are up in there. Like Rick should be starring a couple of these things, but he's not. He's not doing his job downstairs. I don't know why. But we're going to explain a few things now before we go a little deeper into this. And the first one is to try and explain how do the fees work on Whatnot, because I think that's a very important thing. And then we're going to show you how you actually set up an actual auction listing. So there's 2 ways to sell. You can sell items on auction, which is what most people do, and you can also have items that are buy it now. There is also a marketplace in Whatnot. We're not going to talk about the marketplace really at all right now. It is really not that active a place. It's not why people go to Whatnot. Maybe for Pokemon cards or Funko or something, but generally for the what we call ourselves random resellers is not for us as a category. So let's just talk to you next about how much it costs, because that's the next big thing. So we know what Whatnot is. It's a live auction place. We'll show you in a few minutes how you actually build things and how shipping is calculated as well. That was another question that we got asked, I think. There. Yeah. But it's the first thing you got to know is what's it going to cost you. So Whatnot has a very basic structure. Every single item, as you sell it, they charge the buyer the shipping. You don't pay the shipping. The buyer pays the shipping. But you, as the seller, pay a fee. It's 8% on the sold price. And then 2.9%, which is what they call their processing fee, which is based on the sold price, the delivery charge, and then any taxes that are collected. So they're just like eBay. They collect and remit the taxes for you. You don't have to think about that kind of thing. And when they do that process at the end of every single auction that ends, they do that and they charge 30 cents on top of that. So when you think about those things, 8%, not bad. 2.9% on top of that, including delivery and taxes. And we have a video, if you go to YouTube, to our Two Dogs Digs channel, we have this whole thing in a video that's talk a lot more in depth about this. What it means, though, is if you sell something for a very low price, like $1, you're throwing money away, because you're going to be paying Whatnot 46 to 55 cents for that $1 item. Why? Because this is the real detail. On a $1 sale, they charge you that 2.9% on the shipping as well. So a $1 sale, 8% on $1 is only 8 cents. Woohoo! But 2.9%, which is the payment fee, is calculated on that $1 sale and then whatever the shipping is. Now, the way that Whatnot works shipping out is when you put in where you're selling from, Whatnot has a calculation built into their system that will tell the buyer how much it's going to cost for every single item they're looking at. So I'm going to see if I can actually pop a page on right now to see. I'm going to have to probably go to somebody's live in order to do this. Hopefully I'll do it without too much sound coming in here. If you're looking at this as an example, and I just pop to this. Pardon me if I'm getting sound covering on this. I'll try and there we go, knock the sound out. So this particular person, of course, they just decided they weren't going to do something live right now. Well, here's something that, see if I can get, yeah, just as I'm about to, it always happens when you're trying to show something live. It's like, no, now I've decided I haven't got anything up for sale. Let me pop onto another one that's live right now. And let me just see Here, we'll go to this one, just as an example. So when we go on to this, you can see right in here, there's a shipping and taxes button that is underneath. Take the sound off. Shipping and taxes button under every single thing. So when they start an auction out and they say, we're starting this Bratz thing auction out, I can click on the shipping and taxes, and it's going to tell me from where I am, in this particular case, that item is going to cost $5.33 for me. Because Whatnot is figuring out how much it costs based on the weight from where you are as the seller to wherever it happens to be going. So if I'm in the States and I'm in Utah and it's going to California, it's going to cost this much money. If I'm in Niagara Falls, New York, and it's going to Rochester, it's going to cost this much money. If I'm in Canada and I'm sending it from BC to Boston, it's going to cost this much money. If I am from Canada, I'm sending it from BC to Toronto, it's going to cost this much money. They are charging the buyer based on the weight of the item plus the packaging. You always have to remember to add in a little bit for the packaging of the item. And what ends up happening is, as time goes on, if somebody bids on more than one thing, the next thing they have, Whatnot's magical mystery shipping system, adds the weight to what you already paid. So you may have paid $5 for the first item or $10 for the first item. When you add that second item, it's going to tell you, oh, this second item only costs you an extra $1.33, because it's adding the things in, thinking, oh, this is all going to go in one package. It works out really good when you're doing things, especially like jewelry, because every one of them goes in with like 1 to 3 ounces. So somebody can keep buying. And the way Whatnot works, if you're in the States, the easy US sort of way of doing it is up to 1 pound, they'll charge you up to $8.35. Then from 1 to 5 pounds, there's no extra fee. The buyer doesn't pay anything else. So Shari and Nuria can keep adding things in, and it's not going to add too much more. Sending to the States. Sending within Canada, it's a little different, and Nuria is going to talk a little bit about that as we get a little deeper in. But basically, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to set up an item. You're trying to, and you'll be able to see what the shipping cost of every single item is. So when I was talking about the difference, just to give you an idea, we always tell people don't sell $1 items, because $1 item is going to cost you so much. If you moved one $1 item and you had 5 of them and you sold them all for $1 a piece, you're going to make about $2.50. If you took all those 5 items and put them into one $5 lot, you're actually going to end up making $3.91. That's like an extra $1.50 almost, just because you decided not to start something at $1. So you'll see lots and lots of people saying, I start stuff at $1. I start stuff at $1. Now, here's the question. Do you ever start stuff at $1, Shari?
No.
Okay.
Took your advice. Nothing starts at less than $3.
I'm the same way now. I don't start anything at less
$3.
than
That's it.
Nuria, do you ever start something at $1?
I do, but it's only on certain occasions that I will. There's a thing called giveaways, which I absolutely do not do. But if, for example, if we get a raid from a really big group, I will do a $1 start, but it's generally on a really, really small item. And something that didn't cost me, obviously, more than probably 50 cents. That's pretty much the only time I will, or unless I see that the folks that are watching, they're just not motivated yet to start buying, then I'll be like, okay, I need to start something at $1 here to get, people motivated and moving.
Yeah. And just to give you a quick summary, when I was talking about the examples, take a look here. Again, in detail on that on the Whatnot video we did about Whatnot fees. If you sold something for $1 and the shipping cost was $4, you're going to pay 56% in fees. You're only going to net 44 cents. But if you sell something at $10 with the same $4.88, you're actually going to be selling at 16%. So it's really not bad. It's only bad in the $1 and $2 area. That's the place that it's like, oh, it can be really scary. So when you're building these kind of things, the idea behind it is relatively simple. You need to put in the item name. You have to put a weight by the item. So Whatnot will show you different options on weight. So I'm going to show you us building an actual listing right now. I'm doing this on the desktop, but it can be done in the regular place. You can do it on your phone as well. So what I'm going to do is open one of the shows that I've got coming up. I've got a boys toy show. I'm part of Whatnot Con, which is a big thing they're doing this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's their sort of their own toy con or everything convention. And I was lucky enough to be invited. So we are doing, Two Dogs Digs is doing a show on Thursday at 6 o'clock. That's vintage boys toys, and Sunday at 4 o'clock. That is vintage Barbies and things like that from the 60s and 70s. So I'm going to show you this here. So we open our show. This isn't running live yet. This is just opening our show. And then this is how easy it is for you to do. All we do is click on add. We're going to add an item. There's a couple of ways to do it, but let's take it through the easy way. A quick ad. Tell me what the product name is. Boy toy. Call it whatever you want. Call it jewelry. Call it weighs 1 to 3 ounces. Call it thing. Whatever title you want to put in there. More description. If you have more description, so if we're doing dolls, we might say something like stand not included. You don't have to get into the details that you see people put on in a big eBay listing or an Etsy listing. You don't have to talk 20 ways to Sunday about what the item is, because you're going to be showing them the item as you talk. You're going to be talking about the flaws. You don't need to write 17 things about it. You can measure it on camera. You don't have to put the measurements in something. When Shari's doing jewelry, I know she holds up pieces of jewelry and she shows the sides of them. She turns them around. She goes, there's the signature. You can see that this is al dente. See how much I know about that's not a jewelry name. Trifari, that's what I was trying to think of, and all that came in my head was al dente. Guess I'm hungry. So you're adding in a description. You're putting in your starting price. Well, we just told you you're not going to start anything at lower than 3, but I'm going to start this one at 5. And then a quantity. So when you build this, you can do it a couple of ways. You can build them 1 by 1 by 1. So in this case, there's 1 item. Then we're going to select a shipping profile. So the easy way, you can see through here, 1 to 3 ounce, 4 to 7 ounces, all these different weights. In Canada, is it, when you're setting it up, Nuria, for Canada, is it showing it in ounces or is it showing it in kilos?
It shows it exactly the same way, but I've kind of complicated things and I've got my own shipping profiles.
Okay. Yes, you can build separate shipping profiles that are individual. So I did one here. Actually, you can see I built a shipping profile for 2 coffee mugs that's very specific to the weight of 2 coffee mugs. But in this case, we'll just say this toy happens to be 8 to 11 ounces. That's all I need to do, except I need to add a photo. And I'm confirming this. And boom, I now have an item in here. We go to the side. There it is. You can see boy toy, 1 available. I can also add multiple items. So I could go in here and say, let's just do this, more toys. And I'm not going to say a description. My starting price would be $5. My quantity on them, my quantity is going to be 10 of these because I have 10 of the same type of thing. Now I can do a couple of different ways with that. I can list it as 10 things. I can list this as 95 things. So with Shari and Nuria, when they're talking about jewelry, they may list something and says it's a 1 to 3 ounce item. And I have 95 of them. They're not going to put a picture. They're going to show it on the screen. But in this case, I'm going to say I've got, instead of 95, I got 5 of them. So I can do it as that. And if I click my profile, each of those things is going to weigh 1 to 3 ounces. There we go. I just hit list. But I can also list all those individually. Click that little button. And now, when I hit confirm, it's going to build a bunch of products in a row there. And it's going to call them. Come on. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Down there. It's going to call them more toys 1, 2, 3, 4. There. More toys 4, more toys 5. So it's actually adding those in there. So you can go back to them and edit them in detail a little further on. So it's that simple to add something. If I was doing it on my phone, it's the exact same way. I would be opening my phone up and then I would be going, I'm just going to do it this way because it's easier. I would be going and hit my shop. There's my shop. And then I'm going to hit the little plus sign up in the top corner here. Plus. There's my thing. And there's the exact same stuff in there. The category, what categories I use, the title, the description, all of the things that we just talked about. Hit next. There's, won't do next because I didn't hit the category and things like that. And then it's got the sizes and weights and everything in there. So that's how easy it is to add a listing in. 1 listing, 10 of the same thing, 30 of the same thing. It's all sort of, it's that easy to start a listing.
You do it that way on the phone, though. You have to remember you're going to have to add a picture. It won't let you save without adding a picture. You have to hit the lightning bolt up in the top right corner. Then you can do a quick listing without a photo.
Yeah, I'm trying to just do try and get one in here that starts doing that with it. There, run the 3, add. Interestingly, for me, it actually added one without a photo.
Wow.
I just put in what, and it just put, maybe it's an Android iOS thing, but yeah, I just did the add quantity one, and I can add my photo later if I wanted to. So
I have to try that because mine's an Android.
That's interesting. So there's all little tricky things that can be a little different from one person to another. But again, the general idea is you write it up, you put a title, you put a weight. The weight is the item plus a little bit of shipping in there because that's how it's calculating things. Now, Elisa's, I'm not sure what Rick's putting in there. Elisa, the word whatnot in the graphic is provided that was cut off. Oh, yes. It's not called hating. That's the way that the show for the Whatnot Con is actually set up. The screen cap for it is Whatnot. That's how the show is actually set. That's the icons they gave us. So official vendor, Whatnot Con, that's Whatnot. That's Whatnot and Con. But that's their template. They did the template, not me. So it's like kind of weird that they did the template that way. So that's the way you set up a listing. And then I'm not going to be sure if I'm going to be able to show it the way I want to. When you want to launch your auction, it's really that simple. You can do things 2 ways. You can add them as auctions or add them as buy it now. When you go, you actually bring an item up. Let's see if I can do this. Just to try to see if I can do it. I don't know if it's going to work for me. You pin the item. That will make the item show up on the bottom here. So if I do this next product, pin the item, it's actually pinning Action Jackson figure, mint and box. So it's pulling that information. And if I wanted to, underneath here, it would actually click on the button and it would say start auction. If this was live, it would start an auction. When you go to start those auctions, you can start them for as long as you want. You can run them for 10 seconds, 1 second, 15 seconds, 60 seconds. You can also say whether you want to have sudden death. Sudden death means that it never ends if somebody else keeps bidding. That keeps adding time to it, which is, I think, the only way to do auctions. I don't think you should do them with, and now it's cut off, because then someone goes, what? So sudden death allows people to keep bidding.
No, it's the other way around.
The other way around?
The sudden death, there is no extended time.
Oh, sudden death, there's no extended time. Okay. So yeah. So sudden death is like eBay.
It's a dangerous way of doing it.
Okay. Sudden death is like
for the
eBay.
Buyer.
So I actually here, perfect. I'm glad to say I never adjusted it. So I just looked at it and saw it was ticked off. I thought, okay, that's fine. I just leave it. But so you heard it from the horse's mouth. I had the name wrong. So sudden death means it ends like eBay. That's the end.
Done.
30 seconds. It's just 30 seconds. Non-sudden death means that it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling along.
It's like what is it? That other auction thing we do.
High bid, max sold, things
Max
like
sold.
that.
Soft close.
Now I got a couple of questions that I want to just go into here. Do you calculate shipping beforehand? So again, it's not up to you to calculate shipping. You have to calculate the weight of the item. Whatnot does all the calculations. The buyer pays all those shippings themselves. They get to see what the calculation is of the shipping by looking at that. But you don't want to guess wrong. You want to make sure that you're doing something realistic. You don't want to say it's 1 ounce and then put a giant piece of chalet glass that weighs 5 pounds. You make sure it's a realistic weight that you're doing. Heather said, need to know how to set up the auction. So hopefully I showed you really briefly there. You just add in the item, and then you're going to actually click and do the auction. You're going to start the auction with the number of times. Sandy makes a comment, Whatnot Academy has lots of how-tos and Q&A pages. And so, yes, tons of stuff available on there. They make it so easy. What about size? Well, again, that's one of the things you just think about when you're building the size. you're going to try and think about keeping things in the US to the USPS size, which is the 12 by 12 by 12, 1728 cubic inches. If you can only fit a certain amount of things, like if they're larger things, you might have to learn a little bit more about creating custom profiles for your shipping, which tell only how many things can fit in one box, how the weight of that box could be. But generally, for what we've been doing, and like Shari's done jewelry, and I think it depends on what it is that Nuria happens to be selling that specific time or day, is we haven't really hit any issues in that, like a year and a half. We just look at stuff and go, it'll probably fit in the box. It will send it. It'll figure out the way. Whatnot figures out the way. They actually give you 5 screw-ups every week, too. If you do something wrong, they give you 5 screw-ups every week that they don't charge you for, before they say, now you've done 5 screw-ups, now I'm going to charge you. And the Charmaine says, how long is the average show? That's how long is a piece of string? Well, let me just ask again. So, Shari, what's your average show like?
If I'm actually selling something, an hour, hour and a half.
Okay.
My longest show was 4.5.
Your longest show is 4.5, and what's your shortest show?
About 12 minutes. I said, oh, screw this.
Okay. No. Nuria, what is your longest show?
My longest show has probably been about 4.5.
And your
I average about 2.5 to 3.5 hours per show.
And shortest show?
I would say probably an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't cut my shows off just because the people that are with me are generally really entertaining, so they keep me really great company.
Oh, okay.
Can we go back a little bit just on the shipping for Canada, because I am shipping from Canada, as opposed to what you guys are doing. So shipping from Canada, from Whatnot, pretty much our rates are based on Canada Post. So we don't have the extremely great rates. So shipping a very small item like a piece of jewelry or something really light is generally going to cost somebody in the States $10.50. And that's to anywhere in the States. And to anybody in Canada, it's generally going to cost $11. So it's a little bit cheaper to ship to the States than it is to ship to Canada. And then it's incremental afterwards. So it goes from 25 cents for a 1 ounce item to 50 cents to 1 to 3 ounces. Then 4 to 7 ounces is $1.50, and so on and so forth. Whatnot just put us into the same type of, you can't have that many screw ups on your shipping. Otherwise, we're going to charge you. So we still get 5 adjustments for free if we do end up underweighing something or something is not going to fit. Now, the disadvantage, and I'm going to be completely honest, what happened is we don't have a 12 by 12 by 12 box. Because of Canada Post, we are restricted to a 6 by 6 by 6 box. So 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters as Canadians shipping from Canada on Whatnot through their Canada Post. But what I have actually done is I've kept my shipping profiles exactly the same. I haven't changed anything. I would say I ship well over probably 20 packages a week, sometimes more. And I've only had 1 charged adjustment. Because once you sell a lot, once you sell more, the weight goes up. And then because the weight goes up, it technically tells Whatnot in Canada Post that the box is obviously going to be a little bit bigger. I don't know how they work it out, but I think this past week, I did 3 shows. I did a raid train, and none of my shipments had adjustments on them. So
now, as Nuria was saying, again, it's really easy. If you go into Whatnot and you look up for buyers and you ask for shipping, there's actually an entire section on Canada shipping costs. So you can actually go in there and it explains to you, if you're sending something from Canada to Canada, it is selling and using Canada Post labels. So all you have to do is print off the label at the end of the show. I think that's one thing I didn't really make 100% clear is when the show ends, you get your labels printed by Whatnot, because Whatnot has collected the money for the shipping. So they are sending you your labels. So that's the 3 different ways that we all handle things. With Shari, she prints off her USPS label, and then she sticks it onto her packages and walks to the post office and drops them in. For me, I print out my USPS label since I use a cross-border shipper that allows me to drop off items. Only Stallion Express, DYK, Run and Red allow you to do that right now. So Run and Red in Winnipeg, Stallion in Vancouver and Calgary, Edmonton, and Ontario for Stallion Express, and DYK in Alberta. So those places let you actually drop a package off with USPS shipping bought by anybody and pay them like 70 cents a buck for every package. So I have to build that price in too. Nuria gets the printouts of Canada Post postage. So all she has to do is print Canada Post postage, stick it on her packages. Am I right? And take them to Canada Post.
And take them to Canada Post.
So it's the shipping is coming from somebody else. Now, the one thing we do, because we're cross-border shippers, we have to fill out a whole little form. Shari doesn't have to do that in the States. Nuria doesn't have to do that in Canada. If she wants, she can take a picture of it. But when Whatnot creates all these things, they actually give you the tracking number. They attach the tracking number to every sale, don't they, Nuria?
They do. Yep.
So the person who buys it, if I bought it from Toronto from Nuria, I'm going to actually see there's a tracking number there. I just bought something from Shari's husband Jeff's show on Saturday. He did his first show. I'm not counting it as his first show because he made Shari do everything. But and when they shipped it, they shipped to my U.S. address, and I got tracking number saying it's been shipped. You bought this and this from like Pooh Bear, and this is what. And Pooh Bear has now shipped your stuff. I would get something. Vintiquity has shipped your stuff. Thank you for buying from Vintiquity. Vintiquity has shipped your stuff. So, but again, so if you go onto Whatnot and you go into the seller section, Whatnot for buyers. This is just, you can look in the buyer section. This is the for buyers. This is what the charges you, and it explains everything. Now, that's the one thing that's a little tricky is everything on Whatnot is in US dollars. So even as a Canadian, when you sign on, you're seeing US dollars. How do your people think about that? How do your Canadians feel about that kind of thing, Nuria?
The Canadian, as Canadians, we're so used to paying a lot more than people in the States. So my Canadian base, they're fine with it. They know the prices. So we're paying not only that, but we're paying the taxes as well, and we're paying a higher shipping, and we're paying obviously in US dollars. My US buyers, they're used to it because they don't even bother asking, is that in US dollars? It's
Right.
mostly the new Canadian buyers that kind of have a hard time figuring out, well, am I buying in Canadian? Because you're Canadian, and but you have to constantly explain to them, no, it's all in US dollars.
Now, Titania's got the question, why are we limited to a 6x6x6 box in Canada?
It's Canada Post. It's not Whatnot.
So it's not that you're limited to that box. You can use bigger boxes, correct?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So once you finish your show and you sold, let's say you might have just sold one item to one person, but generally people, when they start buying from you, they buy more than one item. So then you package their items. And a lot of the packages of what I do, obviously, because I do decor, vintage decor, and bigger items, my boxes do end up being a little bit bigger. And then you just have to do the adjustments, the measurements, and the weight of it. And then input that information on to Whatnot when you're doing your shipping labels. And then you either get an adjustment or you don't get an adjustment. It all really depends.
Whatnot, yeah, Whatnot figures it all out for you. That's the nice thing about this is Whatnot does figure out all that stuff for you when you're doing that. And at the end of it all, as Nuria said, she hasn't really been charged anything. Shari, have you ever been charged anything extra?
I've been told that I'm going to be charged, that I could incur the charge, but with those 5 freebies, I haven't been charged.
And
so I have had a couple of errors.
Was that because you had somebody buy a lot of jewelry, like the weight was so high?
Because the weight was higher, because the items were larger.
Oh, larger items too.
Okay. So I made the mistake of not adjusting the weight for some items that were maybe larger. They had a box with them, like a whole watch set, let's say, with 30 interchangeable rings on them or watch bands. So I did not account for that extra weight and let it go through as the 1 to 3 ounce. So it added like another 6 ounces to the package. So I ended up getting dinged for it there. But again, the 5 freebies ate it up.
So somebody did ask a question, just what I sort of said. Do we ship from Canada using, we ship from Canada using Stallion Express. And so all you have to do with that is you just have to remember that Stallion Express is actually going to be charging you 70 cents. So if you did actually use that, you're adding $1 out of your own pocket. And so you have to cover that off. Someone else asked a question about, what if something breaks? Well, we haven't had anything break. Nuria, you sell some glass things like that. We also sell, again, just so you know, we don't just sell toys. We sell toys. We sell ephemera, so paper goods. We sell vintage Christmas decor. We sell regular, like, crafty little, like, decor. We sell kitschy stuff. A lot of the same stuff that Nuria tries to, or sells as well. So when have you had anything, like, break on you?
I did. And I think it was more weather related. So, make sure you tell your buyers if you're buying glass or porcelain or anything and you're shipping in the winter, tell them to leave their package unopened for at least 24 hours before they go and open it, so the package and all the items inside can get a little bit of, I can't say the word, what is it, acclimatized, I guess? Yeah. But that's the only time that I've had something break. And you always tell the buyer, contact Whatnot.
Yeah.
Whatnot deals with any breakage, any lost items, anything. It is not between the buyer and the seller. It is between the buyer and Whatnot. And then Whatnot can contact you. They might contact you. But generally what you need to make sure that they do is you need to keep the packaging material. You need to keep the box, and you need to keep the item that is broken, because Whatnot will ask you for those pictures.
Yeah. And if some item gets lost or things like that, again, if the buyer does contact you, it's literally, please contact Whatnot. Whatnot is the people, they take care of everything. Remember, they collected all the money for you. They disperse the money to you as well. And the one thing that's a little different with Whatnot is if you're starting out, Shari's still in this position. I don't know if Nuria is, but I know we aren't. When you're starting out with Whatnot, for the first 1,000, sounds like a lot, but we hit it. We were surprised. The first 1,000 items that we sell, we actually, what Whatnot does is they pay to our account once the item has been shown as delivered to the buyer. So it makes sense. I mean, they want to be safe. They don't want to give me my money when they don't even know if something's there. Once I've been working, just like with eBay, if you start out with eBay, you can only list like 10 items, maybe 25. And eBay wants to know you're real, that you're actually fulfilling these things as a seller. So they have this system, and the money goes into a little bank account for you. And then you can cash it out. It's like whenever every piece gets delivered, you can check and see, oh, this item got delivered. This one's missing. Well, I wonder where that is. You can check your tracking. You can see every single item. Once you hit 1,000 items, the really neat thing is that the minute that you actually print the postage, Whatnot gives you the money. And so much so that one of the things that I was talking about the other day, because, you know, I don't hide anything that we're doing in here for us as a reseller. So we've done shows that have been 15 minutes is our shortest show, because like Shari, it's like, I'm just like, oh, hell no. I'm not sitting here. Nobody's visiting me. Nobody's talking to me. I feel like I'm just like, hello, Bueller, anyone. And if I have 15 minutes of a show like that and I got nobody, what would you like to see? What can I do for you? Hey, I'm here, tip your waiter. Anything I talk, and I got nothing after 15 minutes, I keep my happy face on. I go, thank you so much for coming. Hope you'll see us again soon. Even if I have the show planned in advance, I'll end it and move it. I don't wait. Some people I've seen wait 4 hours and still not have a sale. And I'm like, that's a little bit much. Now, if you have a connection with your people, like Nuria is saying, she has a connection with people. She's chatting with them. That's a different thing. Just, you may not be making big sales, but you're engaging with your audience. And that engagement with your audience is what's going to bring them possibly back another time to another show. So you can have something that works really well. You can have shows that do bad. I have probably had, I would say 20% of our shows, $0 to $5 in sales. No idea why.
It's true. It is true. Some shows you don't make anything,
No.
or barely anything.
Or
So
barely anything, which is
it does
again,
happen.
And some shows, $500, $700. Last night, as you saw it in our craft group, $850 in 2 hours selling dolls. And we just did that show, and I'm just going to show you this literally. Here's our ledger from last night. This is every item. There's the earnings for every item that came in from last night. Every sale I made is there. And because we have instant payout, I got $1,490 US sitting in my account right now from the last week and a half of shows. There's other payouts that I've had. Take a look. I'm not hiding. $509 March 22nd, $1,000 March 12th, $465 March 6th. That's March. We're only in April now, and I already got $1,500. And you know what? I'm gonna cash that out. And boom, it's on the way to my PayPal account. It's that easy. Now, it could have been slower. Like Shari's right now, she's at about 680 items. So Shari's builds in there as each item comes through. She'll see a ledger, and her ledger will say, as you can see, this is the earnings from this little Kittle. So Shari will see, this is the earnings from item number 7. This is earnings from item number 8. This is earnings from item number 9 in her jewelry. So she can see what's come in. So literally, I just moved $1,500 over like that. So again, that's pretty darn easy in terms of getting payment. Now, the way I set it up in the US, I have US payment directly into my US account. I have a US account with TD Bank. Royal Bank has them as well. So I can transfer my money from my PayPal into my US account. I don't have to worry about exchange rates, anything like that. How do you get paid, Nuria? Does it pay you in Canadian funds? Does it pay you in US funds?
It pays you in US funds, and I do bring it onto PayPal because I have been not known to shop on Whatnot as well. So the money sits there. The rest I just transfer it to my Canadian bank account, and I and I do get dinged obviously with a conversion rate. But there is Stripe now, which would mean that Whatnot can now deposit. It will have a conversion rate, but it's not going to go through PayPal. It will be directly from Whatnot into your Canadian bank account.
Using Stripe, yeah, that's a new
using Stripe
payment service they use. And Shari, how often do you cash your money out in there? Whenever you see money in there, or do you wait for it to build up? Or
I'll usually wait till it builds up to a couple of hundred, and then I'll switch it over.
Now, I'm going to try and get some more questions in here. Lisa,
or I'll leave it in there to
how
buy.
do we build the extra charge for an auction item? Well, this is kind of basically the idea behind it is that I know I'm going to be charged an extra buck if I use Stallion Express. So I make sure I add the extra buck to whatever I'm selling. And if I sell 7 things to one person and I build that extra buck into all those 7 things, I just made $7 and I'm only paying 70 cents to Stallion Express. It's the same thing, Nuria, you and I were having a chat about that, where it's just like, what was it we were talking about? Was it
the adjustments? So now that we have adjustments that came to Canada within the past, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, and everybody was like in an uproar because we're like, oh my God, what is going to happen to all of the great big items that we've been able to ship, not only across Canada, but to the US as well? We're like, we're going to get dinged. And I said, just add $1 to every single one of your items, and that will cover any adjustments that you have to do for that week. If you get charged, right? Because you do get those. That's what people need to relax a little bit. You only get charged after 5 adjustments, and the adjustments have to be, you have to change the box size and the weight size, or vice versa, or one or the other. It's not if, for example, you're just decreasing the weight size, or you have to increase the box size. Sometimes it doesn't even do an adjustment when you have to increase the box size, because the weight size pretty much covered whatever the extra charge would be.
So if you're selling one item to one person, you really don't have much to change. But if you do sell more than one item, you've just got to make sure once you packaged it, that you have the real size and weight of the item for Canada Post or for USPS, because that's what's going to make sure the charges are right. And again, we've never hit, I think we've only had 2 adjustments happen, 1 a week in like the past 4 months of shows. And it was literally for something that like just ended up being too many things that someone bought, and the box got bigger and bigger and that sort of thing. And went, oh, it went over 5 pounds, or it didn't go in the US, it didn't go ground advantage, it moved up to priority. And theoretically, we could be charged the difference between there. But we had one of those last week, and they didn't charge us anything on it. So I guess it was one of those, oh, we'll let it go. Somebody asked about, how do you know who sold what? Well, I'm going to show you on the desktop, because that to me is the easiest way to show people how to do this, is on the desktop. There is a page you can go to. This is the seller hub they have. And there is your orders page. And on your orders page, it lists all your shows. So underneath each show, get rid of that. Underneath each show, it says, there's my Barbie show. And there it tells me all of who bought every single thing. In this particular case, I have pictures of most of the items as well. So because I've done individual items, I can actually see that. You can actually rewatch your shows as well and see what people bought if you were selling a lot of things that you weren't sure of. There's different ways to actually pull this up so that you can actually see things grouped together right after something's been done. So there's a lot of different ways that you can take a look at this. But again, you can actually review your own show and go, oh, this is a video clip of what I sold to somebody. So I guess
it's right there on your shipment. So if you scroll a little bit more, it will show video. Scroll more to, yeah, that way. Or the other way.
Oh.
At the end, a little bit more.
It's not letting me do that on my screen right now.
Oh, it isn't?
No, it's because I think I made it so big that I had to, like, for people to be able to see everything. Not everything's showing up on the screen, but yeah, okay. There is. No.
Yes, it would be beside shipping.
Should be beside shipping. There should be a little video clip there. So I was going to say, that's one of the things that you guys, as selling like jewelry, or when you sell something, you don't have pictures of everything. So how do you keep track as you're going through your show? Just a quick
once it's I put everything to I'm the worst seller when it comes to being organized, to be honest. I put everything right on my display case, and then the next day, because I'm usually tired after 3.5 to 4 hours, what I'll usually do is the next day I'll go onto my shipment, so Seller Hub, go onto shipments, and then I'll go buyer by buyer. And then if there's not a picture or I don't know what they bought, I'll usually go to that little video and I'll pick out the item that is either on here or over there. Or I tried to do the box system where I would write their name on a box. That didn't work.
That's what we do. Rick actually has a box. And since Rick helps me, it's like I'm doing everything live. He'll take every single thing. We write a post-it note, and we have like 10 box lids that are sitting out in our sort of hallway, and he just literally walks out and drops everything into the box lid, so that when we go at the end of a show, last night we started packing at 1 o'clock in the morning, we picked up a box lid, and that's that person's, and we packed everything in that one box. Shari, how do you do that? How do you organize?
Each piece of jewelry goes into a sandwich baggie, and I put a sticky note on it, and then I put it into a quart or a gallon size bag with their name on it.
Okay.
And I've got the bag sitting right next to me. I usually sit on the sofa and work right from the sofa with a table in front of me.
Now, Nuria's got a show starting in about 15 minutes or so. I've got a few more questions I want to answer for people. I know there's a lot to talk about here, but this is one of the challenges with Whatnot, is to try and just get you thinking about that. So again, we've told you how easy it is to list. You literally have a button. I will try and do a video the next time we're doing it. I might even broadcast on our YouTube channel. Actually, what I'll do is on our Thursday show, I'm going to broadcast live our Whatnot show on YouTube. So you'll actually be able to watch how we're doing everything on there. And I'll see if I can get some pictures I can show you in screen cap and sort of sneak around there. Heather has a question about insurance. You can purchase insurance. That is extra. But you really shouldn't have to worry about that. Whatnot, again, takes care of that if something breaks. Does Whatnot have discounted pricing with Canada Post? Yes, basically a little bit of discounting. It's kind of the way that Poshmark has its $12.95, whatever is the fee. So it's got a flat fee at different levels that they've worked out. It is a little bit discounted, I guess. But if you add in a bunch of items, it seems to get a little bit expensive. But Canada Post sucks to begin with with its rate. So I don't think anybody's going to notice, even though you're being charged in the US. A big question from Titania. What percentage of your buyers are American versus Canadian, Nuria?
It depends on the show. I did a raid train, for example, on Saturday, and all of my buyers were from the US. And then on Tuesdays, it could be 50-50. It could be more Canadians. It really all depends on the show and who's watching.
Shari, do you have buyers from outside of the US or mostly US?
I believe they've all been US so far. Yeah.
We're like, I'd say 98% US because we're showing up as a US seller. But literally last night, we sold to somebody in Brampton and we sold to somebody in Germany. So literally across the city from us in Germany, that's the second item we've sold into Canada. And we have to use the cross-border shipper. So the tricky thing is we actually have to have it delivered to the US because they pay that price to come up, and then it comes back up into Canada. And the German one goes to Germany. We've sold to Switzerland. We sold, I think, 4 or 5 other packages outside of like North America. So, but for us, it's like 95%. But I can see, Nuria, as you said, and people have heard this term a bunch in here, and I don't think I never got to explain what's a raid train. One of the two of you take that because I'm not good at doing raid trains.
Okay, so a raid train is technically it's an event that is organized by either 1 or 2 people or a certain group of people, and then one of the sellers starts at whatever time they start in the morning, and then they run for 1 hour, and after the hour is up, then they take everybody that is in their show with them into somebody else's show. And then it just goes on and on and on and on until pretty much the last person. And then if you're the last person, you can run for more than an hour. So but it has to be really organized.
Yeah. So
because
organizes it.
I'm sorry?
So I was just saying, somebody organizes it. You're organizing.
I organize a raid train every 2 weeks with a group of people, but there's another girl that she does all the graphics, and then we just decide what kind of a raid train we're going to do. The majority of the sellers on there are Canadian sellers who only use Canada Post, but we have a couple of US sellers that join into our raid train. And Shari, the next one is going to be jewelry.
Shari loves raid trains, and she should probably join your raid train for jewelry.
Actually, Shari, we are looking for US sellers that have jewelry, so I'll definitely contact you if we have enough slots, which we should. So I can always add more slots.
Here's like what we're talking about. These are 3 raid trains that are jewelry raid trains that Shari's in. She's in a Kentucky Derby one, jewelry and hats. She's in Bangle Time and Bangle Bracelet raid train on the 19th, and an Indy 500 raid train on May 8th. So sometimes people set them up for like really far away in advance. Sometimes they're a little shorter. There's all sorts of different kinds of raid trains that you can look at. There are Facebook groups as well. We always recommend joining Whatnot for resellers. There's 5 or 6 different Whatnot groups. There's a Whatnot jewelry group. There is Discord, which is something that most people aren't familiar with, but it's its own sort of little, I never know how to really describe it. It's like a community-based, kind of like Reddit, kind of like Facebook, but it's its own little thing. And Whatnot has a whole Discord channel. And there are people who talk about raids that you can join into there. I know right now there's a horror one that people advertise in these Whatnot groups as well. I've got a horror train coming up. Anybody got horror stuff they want to do? I've got this train. I'm going to be looking at probably doing a weird train. I'm going to do a pride train, like things like that. So, and the great thing about those trains is, I think Nuria made the comment too, and Shari did, is when you're doing it, it's like one person does 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1. And when the people from 9 to 10, you have an hour. Then at the end of the hour, you click on raid, and all of the people watching you go into the next show. And then they go into the next show. The highest we've ever had was last year. We were part of the Pride weekend that Whatnot actually put on, the official Pride weekend. And Whatnot's Pride event from LA actually rated our Pride show. And we went from having 17 people to 140 people like that. Everybody was watching it. And of those 140, about 50 of them left within 5 minutes. But we had a number, I think 60 to 80 people for a good 20 or 30 minutes and had people shopping with us and maybe bookmarking us and maybe following us, sort of thing. Greg's asking, what about buyer's remorse? No, there is none. Who cares? They have to follow up. There's no cancellations, nothing like that. You buy it, you bought it, it's yours, like a real auction.
Yep.
If somebody doesn't like something, they got to follow up with Whatnot, not you. Do people who buy but don't have a method of payment? No, you will have to have a method of payment set up as a buyer. It doesn't matter. It will not go through to us. We'll actually see something that says that this has not been paid, and it won't let us ship. It won't print a label because they haven't been paid for it. So as a buyer, you have to have payment set up. Is there a person you can talk to at Whatnot? No. There's no phone. Everything on Whatnot is all done by computer. It's all messages to support at Whatnot. I think about 30% of them are AI bots that are answering your questions because they just seem to be the same question. But I have had some amazing support people there. So you can get support. There's no issues with getting support. How many items do you put in a show on average? What's the average amount we should have? That depends on how many. It's like that's the same thing as how long do you want to run. We try to put about 50 items, and we actually put pictures of almost every one of those 50 items in a show. That to us fills an hour or two. If it's not a busy show, then we just take those and move them to another show. And that's something I didn't show you today. But once you do a show and your items are loaded, you can do a thing called cloning. And you can take stuff that didn't sell in this show, you can clone it to your next show. You can clone it to your next show. So again, it saves you time, moves your picture over, moves the weight over, moves everything over. So it's really easy. And if you're doing something generic, like 1 to 3 ounce jewelry, you can clone that. Even though it says nothing on it, you can still clone that. How many do you put on average, Nuria? How many items?
I think right now in tonight's show, I have like 100 and some items on there, but those are all cloned items. Those are all, yeah.
How many do you put on?
Like I said, I'll put 125 to 150 of, just assorted jewelry as seen on screen. But on my table, I may set out 200 to 300 pieces.
Now here's a question. What if you have a buyer's choice? Because some people actually, you'll watch a show and they'll say, here's 7 things, you pick. And we do that all the time. I'm sure that both of you have tried that kind of thing as well. It's like your choice of jewelry or your choice of this knick-knack or anything along those lines. How do you keep track of that? Well, you got to keep track of it the old hard school way, which is you write a note on the item and then put it with take that item off. Say, which one are you wanting? Oh, you wanted the green brooch. And you put that in a bag with the person's name on it. It won't show in the video, but it will say in the video that you're speaking about it. But I don't really know any other way. That's the way we end up doing it. Do you do some other way? I thought I saw a shaking.
In the video, it does.
In the video.
Yeah, the video will show you picking the green item out.
But it has the sound too.
Yes, the sound's there. I just meant if you didn't.
Yeah, so you would have all 3 in front of you, and you could still say, which one do you pick? Oh, you picked the green one, like you said.
Yeah.
Okay, this one is yours, and say that person's name. But
I guess sometimes that might work a little less easier for Nuria if she's just putting everything on the counter beside her. For you and I, who have little boxes and bags, it works. It's real easy because it's like, you want this, I pick it up, I put it in a bag, I put your name in, and it takes over in a little box over there. Which night is the busiest?
Every night.
It is so crazy. We have seen people late nights, because we do stay late night since COVID. We've been 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning people. We see people at 4 o'clock in the morning who have 30, 40 viewers in a show, shopping and selling stuff as well. We've seen daytime stuff that has amazing numbers. We see it literally, and that's one of the things. If you're selling something, we just tell you, go and take a look, different times of the day. Look at your category, look and see what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. You'll see some shows have 100 people. You see some have 6. You don't need to have more than 5 or 6 people if they're actively, hopefully, auctioning, bidding on items that you want, maybe bidding them up a bit. And if you're starting items at a price that you are happy with getting. If you're happy with getting $4 for an item or $3 for an item, and you can sell 40 or 50 of them to 5 people, that's a $150 show right there. And we've done a few of those shows where there've been 4 or 5 or 6 people. Usually if we get down to 3 or 4, and we know that Sherry's in our chat and so is Heather, then we go, no, now it's just the 3 of us. And we're not saying not to talk to you guys. Not that we don't love you, but we're not. We're still trying to make the money there. So, Rick said he sent me pictures of our setup. Here's our setup. If I can get this onto the screen. Let's see if I can get that. This is our setup the way we have it. We have it set up so that there's our literally our iPad. Our iPad faces a table that we show everything on the table right there. And then we have beside it, that's our iPad right here. We have beside it this mess because the doll show is coming up. A laptop that's there. So I actually have the laptop open so Rick can see what's going on the laptop. And I also do all my adding of stuff live in there. You can do it all on their phone. You can do it all on the single iPad, but that's how we have it set up. Sitting there, and then Rick is off to the side, so you just see his hands coming in onto the shot. How do you set yours up, Nuria?
The jewelry show, it's just a black cloth and the camera facing it. For the store, technically exactly how we are right now, minus the stool. And then I generally just grab stuff, show it, auction it, put it back, you know, or put it on the counter. And then unboxing, literally just grab it out of the bag, exactly how I packed it, show it, auction it, and off we go. And then I do a scan of the store as well, if there's enough time and if I've got enough battery left on my phone, which sometimes I'll pretend I don't have. No, I'm kidding. It's usually, and people are like, plug in. And I'm like, but I'm really tired.
Our battery has run out too.
I'm really tired.
Elisa says, sounds like it takes a ton of time and prep. Actually, I think it's the opposite. To me, it doesn't take a lot of time and prep when you're just typing in something and you can clone it or you can copy it. And instead of spending all that time on 20 pictures for eBay, showing every angle of something, writing a description that is this and that, the fact that you can just see someone hold up that little bottle of that little margarita that Shari's got in her hand there and hold that jar up and say, this is a mason jar of margaritas and this is how much it's going for right now. And you'll see people who just do that and they don't say another word. So there's not a lot of prep time in it. It could be a lot of sourcing. It depends. I think a lot of us do a lot of sourcing to begin with. So we do need to clear out stuff. And to me, that's one of the other big things is you can clear out a lot of stuff pretty fast. I did a show less than a week and a half ago, which was a bunch of Barbie dolls and things that I thought these aren't worth anything. I'm going to toss them to the thrift store. Instead, I decided to do a $3 doll show. I sold $150. I got rid of a third of the dolls and got $150 in my pocket. I took the rest of the dolls, went, these didn't sell this time. I'm not going to waste any more time or space on them, and took those to the thrift store. So I think if you're doing a lot of sourcing, and I think that you can sort of guess that from behind what Nuria is sitting there, she has some items.
I do.
Shari,
and I buy more.
You have a trunk, I think, that's just been filled with a couple of tubs of jewelry. So
a truck.
A truck.
Like 70. How long is that trailer? 45 foot? Tractor trailer. It's a tractor trailer container.
So we're at a minute, an hour and 20. I knew we'd go a little long. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
I want to make sure that Nuria gets a chance to go to her show because she's got. So I'm going to say, we're going to stay on for a little while. I'm just going to do a top 10 tips, but I'm going to let Nuria go. And remember, you're going to go to Whatnot and go to Vintiquity right now. And if you're going there in the chat, just say we were watching you on Two Dogs Dig, so she'll know that you were there. Is that okay, Nuria?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Nuria is in the craft group. So if there are specific questions that you want to ask, you can say, hey, Nuria Sanchez, please help me. I've got a question.
Tag me. I have no problem answering questions. I'm more than happy to help any Canadian that wants to get onto Whatnot. I think we need more Canadian sellers to begin with. And obviously, as we get more Canadian sellers, we're going to get more Canadian buyers. So I think it's going to be a win-win for everybody.
Yes, that is her store. And she does
this is my store. Come to my show tonight, guys. Come to my show. I'm going to be on for at least 2.5 to 3 hours. We'll do a store scan, and then you guys are going to get the full experience.
Is there anything else you want to throw out, Nuria, just before we let you go? Is there anything we missed? I know we didn't. We tried to cover a lot. It's one of those big, huge subjects. What do you think? Is there any other point you've gone to go? This is one of the.
No, I just people get into it. You know, if you have any questions, we're more than happy to help you. And I do have a YouTube channel. It's also Vintiquity. So come and check out my Nuria really needs to get doing more videos.
Thank you so much. You've been a great
Thank you.
player. We'll be talking to you a lot more, obviously, not only
Thanks,
on
Greg.
this stuff. Thanks, Nuria.
Bye, Shari.
Take care,
Bye.
Nuria.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
You bet. So yeah, Nuria's she's got a show that was gonna start. She does Tuesdays at 8 o'clock, and now it's like right against timing was right against her. So you will be able to look at that for us. I just gotta take a look through a couple of other questions in here. Moderators. Joan is asking about moderators, if you use them or need them. Well, we've actually never officially used them, but Shari kind of moderates for us when she comes in. Some people have them. They can help you with reminding people about things like a coupon that you may have, or don't forget to tune into this, or you can watch Craig on YouTube. Like, so they can help, but you don't have to have a moderator. A lot of times you'll find somebody who will moderate for you really easily. So it's not a big idea. Heather, as you said, you want to know, how do you launch the auction? And again, the challenge is I can't show you how to launch an auction unless I actually have an auction running. So what I'm going to do on Thursday, I'm going to be doing our show live, but I'm going to also have Rick film what I'm doing on the actual camera, so you can see how we actually click on the auction. But once you pin an item, the key, you have to pin the item. Just in case you're wondering what that noise, if that noise did show up, that is Nuria showing up on her show. There she is. There she is. So yeah, she's showing up on her show right now to say hi to everybody because she's late. So yeah, so when you go through that, you'll be able to see how we actually do that. If you teach Mahjong, you can watch it afterwards. I'll try and do that a little later. Yes, I did go to your disaster show. I'm going to show you one other thing, which is a real quickie. But first, I'll ask Shari, is there anything, Shari, that you would say that we sort of missed on a top line on this? There's a lot. You can't really explain everything about eBay to somebody in one shot, or everything about Etsy. So do you think we missed anything, really?
I don't think we missed anything. The one advice that I would give probably is to, like Craig said in the beginning, go watch some shows. Watch different people doing the same category you plan to do, because everybody does it different. There's always something different, whether they're in front of the camera or behind it. And some people use a computer and their phone and a tablet. I use my phone exclusively. So that's the best advice I can give. And once you see all that happening, and then you start reading through the academy and practicing, because you can do a practice run with a show.
Yeah, you can test run without anybody seeing what you're trying to do, so you can get an idea, so you don't have to go live and go, but also
and you can find out where the buttons are. Yep.
Don't worry about if you're saying to people, it's a social platform. If you're on your first time, don't worry about saying, hi, everyone, this is my first time. I hope I'm doing this right. I'm trying to do this. You'll have people, hopefully, that are nice in there that will actually go, no, look to your left and you can butt this button, that kind of thing. So
Whatnot community is amazing.
Yeah, they are.
They really are amazing. I mean, I refer to several sellers on there as friends. Never met each other, but I refer to them as friends. I'll talk to somebody and say, oh, my friend that lives here was showing this the other day. I've never met them in person, but I consider them friends. And they're always so helpful.
You actually are allowed to curse. You can
set
your show up.
Do.
There's a little check mark you can put that says that you may be explicit in that show. So you can do that. So Elisa, you can do it. There's a cursing little button that when you set up a show, you actually can say, this may have explicit content. So you don't have to worry about cursing. So I'm going to show you the real quick top 10 hit tips. So let me just go back to this. So I'm going to take you through the top. I'm going to take you through the top 10 sort of hints as to how you can really do your Whatnot show if you're coming to it for the first time. And the first one actually is exactly what Shari ended up saying. Watch shows that are in the same category as you before you start. Don't rush into anything. Take a little bit of time. Don't try to do everything all at once. Don't try to do bundled shipping. Don't try to add this. Don't try to do promoted listings. Don't try and do things in a step-by-step manner. Number 2, start small. Set a goal of selling a few smaller items. Don't try and sell a car. Don't try and sell giant pieces of like a VCR. Sell books. Sell and Greg, if you're watching, Nuria is one of her very first shows was selling books, and they do have media mail in the US if you're using a cross-border shipper. Easier to pack items. Don't get too panicky. Again, you can end your show at any time. So if you do that first show and you've sold 10 things and you're like, oh my God, just say thank you very much and say, I'm going to come back with a new show next week. And then you can take care of your 10 things that you managed to sell. Don't do $1 and $2 auctions. You lose 30 to 50% in fees. You make more bundling when you do that. Start at $3 minimum. That's what I always say. Don't do giveaways. I don't like giveaways because you're there to sell. You're not there to give things away. And a giveaway will cost you, the seller, money. Not only for the item you give away, but you pay the shipping for that thing to get given away. So you're paying 2 things there. So I always say, no, don't do that.
Not for a buyer's giveaway.
Huh?
Not for a buyer's giveaway.
Well, yes. Well, you just pay the little extra for a buyer's giveaway.
Yeah, usually.
Oh, don't you? Oh, because they've already hit the pound mark.
Because they've already paid postage. Keep it to lightweight items in a buyer's giveaway, and you won't have to pay anything extra.
There are 2 types of giveaways. I didn't really want to get, but there are 2 types. You can just do a regular giveaway, or you can do a giveaway to only people who bought from you. You can't do that in Canada because of Canada rules for contests. And somebody can still find a way to enter even if they bought nothing. But you are still out the item. So that's, again, we just personally, this is my recommendation. Followers don't necessarily mean anything. You'll see in the Whatnot groups, please follow me, please follow me, please follow me. We have 1,800 followers. Shari has 1,600 followers. Nuria has 2,000 followers. We don't have 2,000 people on our show. We have 20. So it's not about how many followers you have. It's how many people are actually going to come to your show. And that's all about getting the category. Schedule your show if you can, at least a week in advance. So people scanning that thing can go through this. Oh, there's something I like to see. Build a good thumbnail, which is the picture that's going to go up for you. And if you can, a video. That's what we always try to do. We try and put a thumbnail in that people can see. We had to use the WhatNotCon ones. And then we try and do a scan of a bunch of the items so that when someone's going through it on their phone, as I showed you before, if I'm going through this on my phone and all of a sudden I get to somebody's image and their image starts moving on me, I might go, I wonder what's in that thing. So if you can do a video, that's a great idea. Preload some items if you can. If you're doing something like share with a bunch of jewelry and you're not sure what it is, there's no problem in saying, okay, here's this. If you can and you got a picture of stuff, that helps. But otherwise, you can easily we preload as many, at least 30, 40, 50 things for people to actually look at. They can pre-bid on things too. We have stuff in our Sunday night show that's already got bids on it. The first bid for auctions that don't even go live until Sunday. We don't like it too much if you just show nothing. It's different depending on the category. Jewelry, I think you don't necessarily have to show a lot. Ephemera, it's also something you don't necessarily have to show because it's based on weight and all the things that you put out in front of you. But especially in a lot of things like toy shows and some of the decor shows, try and show your items, or a few of them at least. Even with Nuria right now, her show today has a bunch of things listed as weights, and then she put in like 5 or 10 specific items. And then, as we say, don't sit for 30 minutes or hours hoping for buyers. If you have nothing in the first 15 and your show, don't feel depressed just because you didn't have people in and you only have 5 people in. Don't get depressed. That just happens sometimes. And finally, be patient. Whatnot is a social live site. Chat, have fun, don't whine. Make it so folks want to come back to your show for future auctions. The last thing I want to see is going on to somebody's show and they're like, this is worth this much. How come nobody's giving me this much money? This is worth, you guys are like so cheap. Really? Thank you very much. That's like walking into a retail store and having somebody yell at you. Like, I don't want to stick around for that. People sitting there like this. I got no interest in watching you do that for 15, 20 minutes. If you're showing me something, talk about it. Don't just hold a piece. Shari does a really good job of it with jewelry, but I've seen people actually hold up jewelry and go, okay, this is up.
Yeah.
And that's all they've said. Like, they don't turn it around. They don't show it. They don't like. That's the challenge I always say with Rick and I. We're always sitting there going, make sure you look at the doll, bend her leg, show her hair, do this, show the markings, show the trifari, show all the different things on it. Try not to sit. Yeah, it would be you. Well, you might sit like sitting there like that. Well, then don't put yourself on camera. Talk about the item you're about to sell. If you're selling DVDs and books and things like that, well, maybe the DVD reminds you of why it's your favorite movie or you had a favorite scene in it. Chat about something like that. It doesn't have to be too hard to do. That's what I always used to teach in presentation skills is talk about something you know. You could hold up a movie Aliens and try and sell the DVD of Aliens and just go, this scared the crap out of me. I don't like that movie. But you probably do. You don't have to show your face. You can just talk about stuff like that. You can have generic music on. Do bicker with your partner. Well, at least that's what Rick and I do. I even heard the tiniest little bit between Shari and Jeff. It was like it was more of a Jeff going, no, you're not going to talk. It was more of that in the background of, I'm not talking. Because I said, I want to hear a word from Pooh Bear. And I was like, no. I got the word, but the word was no.
And then he did his best Eeyore impression for you.
Yes, he did. Go to the bathroom before the show, not during it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can, do everybody a favor. Clean your, you don't have to make it perfect, but wash your hands. Clean the table. It doesn't look great when you have someone showing beautiful pieces of jewelry and they look like they picked them up after they finished the auto mechanic and their hands are all remember, people are going to be looking at those things thinking this is what's handling it before it comes to me. Just like we always say, pack things the way you want to see them. Sell things the way you'd hopefully want to see them. Display them that way. Talk about them that way. Titania wants to know, does Shari shop every day? How do you get so much inventory as a jewelry seller?
Well, I was doing antiques for over 30 years. And then when the shows dried up, I got a lot of inventory left. And like most junkers, thrifters, I do curb surfing and I thrift. And more than half the fun is in the hunt.
Yeah. More than half. Way more than half.
Yeah, way more than half. Yeah.
One last question, which was from Susan. Is there a set time for you to send out the items? Whatnot prefers that you send out items within 1 to 2 days. Again, because you're finishing a show, you literally the next day, you should be hopefully able to pack the items from your show. You're printing off the postage. Really simple just to do the adjustment. This weighs this much, it's this big. Printing off the postage. Dropping it off at Canada Post shouldn't take you any time. Dropping off at USPS shouldn't take you any time. If you're using a cross-border shipper, there's a little extra time because you have to fill in the customs forms. But we still have managed to have basically 1 day shipping at using a cross-border shipper too. So you can do it really fast. In fact, if you look at Shari, she has averaging right now, she's averaging a 2-day average ship time with 622 items sold. And we are averaging a 1 day ship time with over 1,500 items sold. So it's easier to do than you think. I was a little bit afraid of trying to do it. Again, as long as you don't worry that if you have a show and no one shows up, don't worry about it. Try it again. If you don't sell more than $10, don't worry about it. Try it again. If you try it 10 times and you hate it, okay, fine, you hate it. But here's the other big thing. Look in the description here that I always tell people. If you want to try it as a seller, use our referral. There's $100 that gets paid to me if you try and sell something once on there and you sell one item. And I'm going to split that with you. I'll send you 50 and I get 50. So you can try this out for one time, sell one item and make $50. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You can also look in as a buyer. If you go in, there's also a buyer link in there and you get $15 to spend. Might be on me, but it might be on anybody. So again, 2 different ways for you to take a look at trying in there. Just take a look in the description for this and you'll see that. We will do some more whatnot things. We'll try and do some shorter things that talk about individual things. If you do have any other big questions, please either ask them here below for those of you who are watching us after the fact. Sorry, we went way over on this. Or ask us in the craft group. A huge thank you again to Nuria. And again, if you're finished here, pop into Whatnot. Use our link. But pop into Whatnot and go take a peek at Vintiquity and see how she's doing today. Actually, Titania said she works for USPS. UPS. It's all, yes, they did. No, they don't send supplies. They did make supplies at one point, but they don't have supplies anymore. They did make Whatnot tape, but they stopped making it. I don't know why. But a big thank you to that, and a huge thank you to Sharibee, not only for being a Kennel Club supporter. Thank you so much, Shari, for being a supporter, and thank you for trying out Whatnot when you first tried it out. Because I think when you first tried it, you were a bit scared to even try that.
It took me 3.5 months to do my first show.
Yeah. And now you're a regular. Look at you.
Oh, look at me now.
I'm using you as an expert. So thank you again for being here tonight and answering. Shari will answer questions for you too. She's in the craft group. Any questions you got, just please ask her there as well.
Absolutely.
Sorry, a ton of stuff out there, but we tried to give you as best we could, and there's no real way to do it any shorter than this. So hopefully we covered all your questions. Any other questions, again, ask us in craft. Thanks so much for everybody for joining us. We'll see you next Tuesday. I think next Tuesday we're going to do a top tips show and get Carl to join us, if Carl will. Bye, everyone.
Bye.